Namaskar. Today is a very important day because today is the third language in which I am beginning this video. The video that you are seeing today has already been recorded in two languages before this, first in Bangla and then in Hindi. Bangla was first because the subject that we are going to talk about today is a subject that is very, very relevant to West Bengal. Because today we are going to discuss two important things. The second thing, or the second topic or the subject, is related to elections in West Bengal. As we know, this is 2026. This video is being recorded on 21st of January 2026. It's a Wednesday today, and 2026 also happens to be the year when elections in West Bengal, the Vidhan Sabha elections, as it is called, is going to be held about 100 days from now. And that is why the first recording that I did on this topic was in the native language, Bangla. I also recorded almost the same message, not a translation read out, because nothing is scripted here. Everything that we record is just impromptu. So what was recorded after the Bengali recording was kind of a Hindi version of the same thing, and today I'm recording an English version of what I have recorded in Bangla and Hindi. So you might see differences. It's not exactly a translation, but more or less it's the same thought and the same idea that I will be trying to convey to all of you. As I mentioned, there are two important things that we are going to discuss today. Now, these two are both very, very engaging things, very interesting issues, and they are generally kind of brought together also. They are brought together in and kind of not exactly integrated, but made a mashup of. And they are presented to people, and that makes it quite a cocktail when these two issues come together. Well, as you can understand, I'm kind of trying to create a suspense and not talking exactly about what those issues are. Very, very soon I will be revealing both of these topics or the issues. But the fact is that it is critical that these two be integrated together, because one cannot really function without the other. And historically, these two have always had a strange relationship between each other. And the lack of the proper relationship between these two aspects or topics that I'm going to address today, the lack of an integrated relationship is really responsible for, should I say, the denigration of both of these issues. Now, having set the stage in this kind of somewhat a puzzling manner, now let me reveal the two things that I'm going to discuss today. The first, of course, is Dharma. Dharma, mind you, not religion, but Dharma. Dharma today is also an English word, so I don't have to essentially go and translate it into and use the word religion, but we will be talking about Dharma. And the second aspect that we will discuss, as I mentioned, is about politics, elections, vote. So these two very, very important issues will be addressed. Let me start by the issue of Dharma. First of all, because this is in English, it's important to be able to distinguish between Dharma and religion. Well, you can see variety of different perspectives about the difference between Dharma and religion, but the way I really distinguish Dharma and religion is by giving the example from our own nation, this nation that is India, Bharat, as it is also known as or called. or has been called over the ages. It became India more recently. More civilizationally, it has been Bharat. So Bharat or India, whichever you are comfortable, this civilization has defined dharma as in a way very different from religion. Although it has become customary to translate the word dharma in English as religion. Now, how really can we experience or understand the concept of dharma? Well, if we go back to the two major epics that have symbolized this nation or has been the bastion for the national scriptures, the most popular two of them is Mahabharata and Ramayana. The first one, Ramayana, as most of you will know, is about the tussle between Rama and Ravana. Rama is or symbolizes the perfection in humanity, and Ravana symbolizes what can go wrong with humanity. These two are the two symbols of humanity. So it's essentially the same age-old tussle between the good and the evil, the divine and the evil, so to say. In the same, or on the same note, Mahabharata, which is another serious and most popular epic that has really laid the foundation and shaped the civilization. And these epics, the stories around these epics just are kind of narrated in all different ways. They are popular movies, they are popular television serials. Before that, there have been books in all different languages, and there have been fables, and these are discussed and told and all that. So they really are an integral part of the very fabric of this civilization. Now, both of these, very important to understand, that even in Mahabharata, it is a tussle between the Pandavas and the Kauravas. The Pandavas are 5 brothers who symbolizes again goodness, what is ethical, whereas the Kauravas are kind of, in the entire epic or the story, symbolize all that is not good or evil. Well, from the Ramayana to the Mahabharata, as we see that the distinctions have got blurred. In the Ramayana, it is very easy at all times to distinguish between good and evil. Rama is always shown or symbolizes the divinity or goodness, whereas Ravana always symbolizes kind of where we can go wrong. Whereas in Mahabharata, we see that this distinction itself for Arjuna, who is one of the protagonists of the Pandavas, who is on the side of the righteous, Arjuna himself is in a dichotomy. He is perplexed. In the war, when the Kauravas and the Pandavas are facing each other in the battlefield of Kurukshetra, very famous, that is the background for the Bhagavad Gita. We see that the entire Bhagavad Gita is where Arjuna, one of the main protagonists of that story, is trying to understand and trying to come out of his own confusion between what is right and what is wrong. So the distinction between ethical and not ethical, righteous and non-righteous is kind of difficult even for someone like Arjuna to decipher. So he has to take help from Sri Krishna, Bhagavan, who is considered as the manifestation of divinity on earth. Bhagavan Sri Krishna is explaining to him and helping him decide between good and evil. So, as we can understand that from Ramayana to Mahabharata, this distinction between what is dharma and adharma itself has to be really understood and unearthed. So, as I was mentioning, these tell us that this nation, at least, our civilization, has understood dharma always from the context of adharma. And dharma has always been pitted against adharma, not against another named dharma. So, what is very important to understand is that Ramayana was not a fight between Hindus and Muslims or Christians or Sikhs. It is not between two sets of people who kind of have a different ideology about who they worship. They both worship what they consider the same gods, and yet they are in battle, because even though they are worshipping the same gods, the same lords, whatever they consider divine, and yet these are stories which tell us that even though you are maybe very, very devoted in your worship, but still there is a possibility that you might stray towards adharma, non-righteous, unethical, what is not good, what is not true, what is not pure, what is not beautiful. So the good, the true, and the beautiful, the integration of that has been kept on the side of dharma, and what is not good, what is not beautiful, what is not true, has been kept on the side of adharma. So this is how dharma and adharma has been distinguished, and they are the ones, these two have been pitted against each other, not this worshipper of this versus the worshipper of that. The same is the case with Mahabharata. The Pandavas and the Kauravas are actually from the same family. They root back to the same grandfather. They're right at the third generation. They have, they are cousins. So this is a fight between cousins. It's a battle between the cousins, and the entire backdrop of the battle has been very in detail. The entire fabric of the epic it's a mesmerizing story, and it's timeless. Both of these are timeless in that sense. But it's also very clear that the Kauravas and the Pandavas are not fighting. This is not a fight between two different religions. This is not a battle between followers of Islam and followers of Christianity, or followers of Allah and followers of Jesus and followers of Shiva and followers of Krishna and followers of Vishnu. Nothing like that. These are battles very clearly between what is good and what is not good. And that is how we would like to look at the word dharma. And hence, it is very important when I am talking about dharma today, for all of you to be absolutely clear that I am not even referring to the brands of dharma, the way dharma has been branded today, let's say, or named today. Now, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with branding of dharma. I am not saying that dharma should not be the way you become dharma parayan. That is the way you remain in dharma, in the path of dharma. Those paths may be different and those paths may be branded differently. Nothing wrong with that. But I am not essentially right today talking about these different brands of dharma, which, for example, Islam, Hinduism, which is now also popularly referred to as Sanatan Dharma. Then there is Sikh Dharma, Buddhism, Buddha Dharma, Christianity, Jewish, all these different, what in English is very clear, these are different religions. So different ways of practicing righteousness, or different ideals, or different paths, different practices, different habits. This is not what I am referring to. Clearly, I am referring to dharma as pitted against adharma. And hence it is important to understand dharma with the reference of adharma. And that is fairly easy, because even if some would say dharma, how do you define dharma and all that, it is very easy to not just define but experience adharma. Because experience of suffering is an experience. Suffering is an experience. We all know when we suffer, when there is pain. So suffering can be traced back to some element of adharma. For example, a person who has no control over his or her what is called mijas or anger, or it becomes loses his or her temper, is short tempered, so to say, means you don't have control over your temper. Temper, you understand, is different from anger. Temper is what makes you up, kind of, and you are not in control of your temper. No one knows when you will lose your temper. That's one of the elements of adharma, being short tempered. Similarly, if you are a greedy person, you have no control over, when greed engulfs you, you cannot control it. So whether it's greed for power, or greed for money, or greed for rasgulla, a Bengali sweet dish, or a specific food, or a particular dress, or anything, that greed is an element of adharma. Similarly, deceit. If you want to deceive people, you lie, you're not in the path of truth. Clearly, that is connected with adharma. Nothing to do with who you are worshipping or who you consider God, Almighty, Divine, but these are things that you experience suffering. Whenever you experience suffering, if you try to trace back to where it's coming from in this life itself, you would find that you can trace it back to something, one of these things. There are more. For example, jealousy, which is all about feeling bad or creating suffering in your own self, not because something has happened to you, because someone else is experiencing goodness, someone else is experiencing non-suffering, is happy, is someone else is doing great, but because you are kind of comparing and not, so that's jealousy. We all know that gives rise to suffering. So jealousy can be traced as one of the adharmas. Similarly, violence. Violence, if you are not peaceful, you cannot remain equanimous. You kind of resort to violence, and it's not just physical violence always. There is mental violence, agitation, frustration, unfounded, especially all of this when it is at inappropriate times, then it is adharma. So similarly, lust. We all know, when suffering can be traced back to elements of lust within you. Arrogance, just the quality of arrogance. Ego, when you're besotted by your own ego, you think it's this sense of identification with your name, with your title, with your physical body, with identification with things that are yours but not you. Even now, as you can see, when I utter the word you, I'm pointing at this body as if this is me, but this is my body. But I'm identifying myself with this body or with my mind. So I'm identifying with my thoughts or mind or something that I possess. So this misidentification, and hence ego coming out of it, ahankar, it is called pride, unfounded pride. So that can lead to suffering. Similarly, denial of stuff that you have done, it's yours, but because of some sense of guilt, we kind of deny. We do some mistake, we do something wrong, but are not ready to accept that, or all the negativities within our own selves. We are not ready to accept that denial. And because of denial, where should that negativity go? It gets projected onto someone else. So that projection, denial and projection that go hand in hand, is the root of a lot of adharma. Similarly, impatience, distraction, impatience, all these, lack of knowledge, it's called ajnanata, ignorance, and not even knowing, being ignorant about your ignorance. All these can be traced back to adharma or suffering. It leads to suffering. Very simple. You are ignorant that, sticking your finger into an electric socket is going to give you an electric shock. If you're ignorant, you put your hand there, you will get that jolt, you will suffer. Of course, it was your ignorance. So trace it back. Connect ignorance, lack of knowledge, lack of wisdom to adharma. Laziness, lack of the propensity to work hard. Obviously, this life, this physicality, this our energy, all of that has been given to us to expend. So laziness. And all of these factors, if you and they don't have to be just these 10 or 12 that I listed out. You can think and come up with all these kind of elements that lead to suffering. If we consider those as the basic building blocks of adharma, then it's easy to understand what is dharma. Dharma then becomes everything that helps us to remain, first of all, save us from all of these. Not just remain away, but save us first. So how does it save us? First of all, so dharma is something that helps us to withdraw from adharma. That is, retreat from adharma. That's the first step. If adharma is very very powerful, and compared to that dharma is weak, not as powerful, then the retreat. So what helps you to retreat? That energy, that wisdom, that buddhi as it is called, that intelligence, that propensity to withdraw from adharma. When you are weak, when dharma is weak, is dharma. But what do you do by running away? You don't run away from adharma. You run away, withdraw, and you build your strength. When you build your strength and when you feel that you are kind of on the same, the bar is on the same height, let's say, you're equal in strength to adharma, then you go and protest. Protest is different from battle and fight. So you protest. Wherever there is adharma, when you are confronted by adharma, you can protest. So that's the second mark of dharma. Dharma protests against adharma. When it sees that it's at an equal footing almost, or it's getting equal, it still doesn't fight or battle adharma. This protest, withdrawal are all strategies of battle. And then comes the third stage. After protesting again, you come back and build your strength further, till you find that you have become, dharma is much more stronger than adharma. Then you go and fight adharma and defeat adharma. So these three stages of withdrawing and then protesting and then defeating could be seen as the defining mark of dharma. And hence, we are clear that dharma in this manner cannot be defined, cannot be understood without understanding adharma. So, very important to understand that the same person can at two different times be on the side of dharma or adharma, depending on the situation, how the person is reacting to a particular situation determines whether the person is on the side of dharma or adharma. So a person practicing, let's say, Hinduism, devotee of Shiva and Rama and Krishna, whatever, is considered today as a model of Hinduism, branded as a religion. So you would say Hindu Dharma or Sanatan Dharma. Similarly, someone who's practicing Islam and considers Allah as his or her God, only God, practitioner of Islam, goes to the masjid, does nawaz and follows all the rules, let's say. Or another practitioner of Christianity or Sikhism or Buddhism or any of these, someone who's practicing atheism, not devoted to any of these kind of named religions. That person is a practitioner of atheism. Now, each of these people have a possibility of indulging in both dharma or adharma. That is, they may do righteous work or something that is not so righteous, not so ethical. So when a practitioner of Islam does something that is non-ethical, then we don't say that it is Islam adharma. When a practitioner of Sanatan or Hinduism or Buddhism or Christianity, by mistake or let's say by some circumstance, gets involved in something that is evil, something that is not righteous, not ethical, that is not connected with that brand. So there is no brand called Islamic adharma. There is no brand called Christian adharma. There is Christian dharma. There is, I'm using the term dharma because in India, most of the people do not refer to dharma as religion. They always refer to it as dharma. But now in this civilization, because all these different branded kind of religion has been branded, and so since dharma and religion has been translated, so these brands have kind of come and permeated and created fissures between dharma itself. And we don't brand adharma, but we brand dharma. That is really the biggest adharma that we are doing with dharma itself. With ethic, with our sense of ethics, with our sense of divinity. That's the biggest problem that we have created, that we have divided, segregated dharma itself into all this. Whereas if we could also had corresponding way segregate adharma and say there is Islamic adharma, there is Hindu adharma, there is Christian adharma, there is Sikh adharma, then it would be very easy to always distinguish between dharma and adharma and not get into these problems of battling this particular method of worship versus that particular method of worship. So having looked at dharma like this, now we have to move on to the second aspect of what I had mentioned, which is the aspect of politics, election, vote. Now you will wonder, what have these two got to do with each other? How am I trying to address these both in the same way? Well, because of a very simple reason, and the reason is that democracy, or Ganatantra as we say, Ganatantra, democracy, which is what our election is all about. The elections will be held as a celebration of democracy. And in democracy, the biggest adharma could be ignorance about the facets of democracy itself. Now, through the democratic process, what are we trying to do? When the elections will take place about 100 days from now, what will we as in you across the camera listening to this video, and I, this side, all of us, general people, the voters, when we go to vote, we go to the polling booth and there is the EVM machine where we press a button and we cast our vote. What are we actually doing? And I'm claiming that therein, through our own ignorance, which we said is one kind of adharma, ignorance itself is adharma, because of our own ignorance, because of our own distraction, we are being led astray. That is the claim. I'm making a claim that we as people are going astray, are making a big mistake, are doing the biggest adharma towards democracy itself, towards Ganatantra, because we decide or choose to remain ignorant about the process of voting itself. So, let me explain. Now, obviously, when we go to vote, we are choosing a particular candidate and a particular party. We know there are political parties, and political parties field candidates. So each candidate who's standing for that election, asking us for who's called, in our terms, is called a prarthi, because they are doing prarthana to us. Prarthana means they are really requesting us to vote for them. So that's how they are called a prarthi. They are doing the request to us, requesting us to vote for them. So these are the candidates. These candidates belong to different political parties. Sometimes these candidates are not affiliated to any particular political party. They stand in these elections as independent candidates. Independent means they're not affiliated to any party. We know this. So this is the norm. So these are the options that we have. Of course, we have these days a last option on the EVM machine called nota, which means none of the above. When you are so frustrated with all the candidates that you don't vote anyone at all, you have that option. But I'm not talking about that. So all these candidates who are standing for the elections, you have an option to go and vote for them. But when you are voting and choosing someone and someone wins in your constituency, that person is actually the chosen one to do what? To do what? I ask you again, to do what? They are the chosen ones to sit in the Vidhan Sabha. That is why this election is called the Vidhan Sabha elections. What is the Vidhan Sabha? Vidhan in Hindi means, Hindi or Bangla or in most Indian languages, stands for the SOP or the manual in which the vidhis or the standard operating procedures are written. These are standard operating procedures for what? For how society is going to function. So just like we might, when we buy this telephone, this cell phone, it comes with an operational manual, operating manual, from where we get to know how do we actually run this phone. In the same way, society, if society has to run, the society needs a manual, an operational manual, operating manual. So that is exactly what is called the Vidhan. Since it is not any one person's responsibility in a democracy, it's a team of people who are elected by the people in order to decide or keep the operating manual up to date. This operating manual was first written as our constitution. This is what the constitution is, which is why in our language it is called the Sangvidhan. Sang means together. We came together, some of the wisest people came together. They were kind of nominated and brought together, and we agreed that they will give, that is, they were representing us, and we gave unto ourselves the operating manual for running our society. That is what happened 3 years after the British left and handed over the reins of running this country, the government, to us. And we decided that we would be a democratic country, and we would elect these people who would keep updating that Sangvidhan. So that's the Vidhan Sabha. In West Bengal, as we know, some of you may not know, many of you may not know, but those of who's little abreast of what's going on know that there are 294 constituencies. That is 294 electoral seats or areas where this voting happens. And the candidates stand for the votes of these individually from these 294 areas. These are called constituencies. So the voting is being done in order to elect the Vidhayak. The person is called the Vidhayak, means who will be the member of the Vidhan Sabha. That person is called the Vidhayak. So you are electing the Vidhayak. So we are electing 294 Vidhayaks. That is what we are doing. And we also understood the responsibility of these Vidhayaks is to actually keep updating the operating manual which will govern us. Now, it is not the entire 294 who will become the government. There's a difference between the Vidhan Sabha and the government. We are actually, through the election of the Vidhan Sabha, we are actually electing the government. Government means those that are a subset of this 294 who will be given the basic responsibilities of running the various departments of the government. So the government has different ministries and departments. A few departments may come together and it may be called a ministry. So that we know that there are different ministries. For example, there's the education ministry, there's the home ministry, there's the finance ministry, there's the tourism ministry, there's the health ministry, and so on, so many of them. Now, all these different ministries have different departments, and in these departments are run by public servants who have been appointed to run the various functions, to do the various jobs related to those departments. And that's what makes the government. But all those people who are working in the government, who are paid money from the taxes that we pay, who get their salaries, who we as a society take care of their lives in order to run the government, are led by the Council of Ministers. So it's the ministers who are selected out of the 294 who actually run the government. That is the pure definition of the government, is the team of ministers. Now, all of them may not go into the Council of Ministers, but more or less the important ones are called the Council, and the very important ones are called the Cabinet Ministers. So typically what happens, we all know, is that the political party which wins the elections, the elects its leader, and the leader himself or herself then chooses the team of ministers who would help him or her to run the government. So that is how the winning political party actually runs the government. Or the leader of the winning political party forms a team which together collectively takes or leads the government and runs the government for the next 5 years. Now, why did I laboriously explain all this, even though many of you might be knowing much of what I said? Still, it was important because the one thing that all of us miss, and all of us have missed till now, is the understanding that when we are casting our vote, we are actually doing the job of choosing the minister and not just a party. And that, my friends, is really the byline or the headline or the line that you would see in the thumbnail of this video. That is what defines what we are talking about. That in this election, let us not be led astray. Let us not be in some maya jal, as it's called. Let us not be in some moh, in some trance, and go and select a party without realizing that actually what we are trying to do is select ministers. Because what we need are ministers. Whether we need the party or not is secondary. First of all, we need great ministers, great people on those posts, great people who can sit in that as at the head of that ministry as a minister, the Minister of Education, the Minister of Health, the Minister of Home, that means Law and Order, Home Ministry, who will be the Minister for the Tourism Ministry, the Finance Ministry. The Finance Minister is going to be responsible for all the financial and economic decisions that are going to be taken. Finally, collectively, yes, but the Finance Minister is responsible. Similarly, all the important aspects of society will be managed and led by or headed by a particular minister. Now, if that is so, then shouldn't we be clear that we should be voting for such and such person in order to become the finance minister, and such person to become the tourism minister, such and such person to become the education minister, and so on. And hence, our byline this time is, in Bangla we said, Dol ke noy, party ke noy, minister bacho. Hindi, we said, party nahi, minister ko chunenge, which really translates to the English term that not the party, choose the minister. So don't go for choosing the party, but go to choose the minister. And in this election, if we can have that as a strategy, we, who's we? We is all of us, all of you. The 10 crore population, roughly, and out of that, the 5, 6, 7 crores voters who go and cast their vote. If all of us get educated this time about this aspect, about how the government is run, who are the ministers, that's the important part. How are the ministries? We don't even know, I'm sure. almost all of you who's listening to this, if I were to take a test today about the number of ministers who are there today, who are running the government, who those ministers are, if I ask you who's the minister of tourism, who's the minister of waterways and water resources and irrigation, who's the finance minister, how many of you would know? Amongst the let's say 6-7 crore voters who will cast their vote, if I were to conduct a test today, if any of us were to conduct a test today and ask, who is our current finance minister? Think about it. Finance, such an important ministry, department. If we were to ask, who's our finance minister? What would you estimate? How many of us even know who's the finance minister today of this state? We don't even know the name. Forget knowing what she is doing or what he is doing, what her budget is, what she controls, who are her deputies, how she is running. We have no idea about the affairs of the finance ministry. Forget that we don't even know who is the finance minister, but we are choosing the finance minister. We are choosing the education minister. And that person is going to determine how our children are going to get educated. Our children's education is, we are handing it over to the hands of the education minister. And we don't care about who that person is. How can we call that a democracy? So, this time, we are going to do this strategy. We will take 12 constituencies out of 294, not many, 12, very few, not even 5%, not even 5% of the constituencies, 12 constituencies only. And these 12 constituencies, let us, all of us together, field individuals. So we're going to find in these 100 days 12 such individuals who can be ministers. One person who can be the education minister, one person who can be the ideal finance minister, one person who can be the ideal home minister, one person who can be the ideal health minister, and so on. 12 such people. And we, as in all of us together, are going to help them not only contest but win these elections. If we try with 12, if we have that strategy, all of us come together and do that, maybe out of 12, at least 5, 6, 7, 8 will win. Maybe all 12 will win. Maybe no one will win. That's a different issue. But at least some of them will win. So assuming even 50% of them have won, we will then be in a position to present these 6 people to the political party that wins the election, to the leader of the political party that wins the election. Now, we are not a political party. I'm not talking about us coming together and forming a political party. I'm just saying that we will come together as, let's say, I've talked about Dharma and I've talked about democracy, which is Ganatantra. So we can call ourselves, if we have to put a name, a brand, we can call ourselves Dharma Parayan Ganatantrik Parishad, DPGP, just like BJP, TMC, INC, ISF, NDA, and so on. These are abbreviations. Similarly, DPGP, but it's not a party. DPGP is not Dharma Parayan Ganatantrik Party. It is just a parishad. Parishad means nothing. There's no real, entity. It's not even a legal entity. Just we all discuss. Now we have social media. You're watching this video in the same way. We all talk to each other, discuss, collaborate. So a parishad is a collaboration, is a collaborative. We don't have to have any formation legally stamped, branded, but just for convenience's sake, we're calling it DPGP, Dharma Parayan Ganatantrik Parishad. And all of you are invited to be members of this Ganatantrik Parishad without paying single paisa, single rupaya fees. No fees. We don't need a budget to run this parishad. We don't need anything like that. We just have to kind of mentally come together and understand, realize there's no money needed in order for bringing in self-realization. It costs nothing. When you are self-realized, it costs nothing. You don't have to spend money to become self-realized. You have to realize, that is self-realization. You have to realize, not someone, you're not waiting for someone else to realize something else. So each of us ourselves have to realize the importance of this and the importance of, forming this collaboration, this collaborative called the DPGP, let's say. It's just a name, nothing great about it. We can call it by any other name, doesn't matter. I'm not taking, any special patent or copyright or registering this name as my domain or anything like that. So what we do is that this Dharma Parayan Ganatantrik Parishad, we all come together and we kind of have a strategy that we will field 12 candidates in 12 constituencies as independent candidates. Now, independent candidates have typically been called, typically they are referred to in our language as Nirdaliyo, means they don't belong to any dal or party. True, an independent candidate does not belong to any political party, that's why they are independent, but we at DPGP, Dharma Parayan Ganatantrik Parishad, we are claiming that our independent candidates are going to be Sarvadaliya, not Nirdaliya. They are going to be Sarvadaliya, means they belong to all the parties. They have nothing against any party. That's the fun, because today what has happened is that if you belong to one party, what defines your belongingness is your hatred and your antipathy towards the other parties. Now, why does it have to be so? Our Dharmaparayan Ustads, Ustad means experts. Why experts? Just a little segue, okay? So experts, because we have to choose people who are experts in either finance or education or law and order or health or tourism or water resources. So we have to find experts in these different fields. And we have to ensure that these experts are also Dharma Parayan, means they are in the path of Dharma. So if we can find people who have this combination in them, they are Dharma Parayan and they are experts in their own fields. And we get those people and get them to stand and contest elections in 12 constituencies as independent candidates. Why independent? We could have presented them to a political party before the elections. If the party feels that they have winnability, then the party will want to give them ticket, but we are saying no. We won't take any party's ticket because we are not responsible for making any party victorious. We don't know actually which party will win. And that's the beauty of Ganatantra or democracy. If there are parties which are on equal footing and which are really contesting and no one really knows which party will win. So what we are saying is that for DPGP and for these 12 candidates, out of which whoever wins, if all 12 win, great. If 6 of them win, that's great too. Whatever it is, people who win will be Vidhayaks. They will be representing us in the Vidhan Sabha. We will be presenting, Nivedan it is called, like Naividya it is called in our language. We will be presenting these winning candidates or Vidhayaks to the leader of the winning political party as Naividya. If assuming that the winner of that political party has the sagacity, has the wisdom, has the prana, because we have done pran pratishtha in that leader, we have, through the electoral process, we have actually given prana or life to that leader of that political party. They are going to be running the government. So they are the lifeblood behind the government. So now that we have done prana pratishtha, means established life into that political party. They have won it. They have won the game. They are victorious. The next 5 years, they are the ones who are the lifeblood of the government. To the leader of that political party, we are going to gift these 6 or 8 or 12 Vidhayaks and say that these people, and we means they themselves are going to gift, because they are representing this DPGP, which DPGP is the Dharma Parayan Ganatantrik Parishad, which is all the voters. And these candidates are being gifted to the leader, saying that please, you accept, and give them as prasad to us, back to us. Prasad means, what is the prasad? They are now the ministers, because the leader of the political party, who is really the king or the queen, or like should be the manifestation of divinity himself, or divinity itself, or divinity herself, whichever way you want to think of divinity. The leader of the political party is supposed to be the manifestation of divine. So we offer this to him or her, and he or she accepts it, and as prasad returns these people to us as ministers. Now we are only talking about a few. There are enough other ministries, enough positions in the Council of Ministers to accommodate all other people, people from other facets, not these 12 or from the DPGP backed or supported people. With that now, and of course the other most important thing is that these candidates who win and who are being presented to the leader of the winning political party, these candidates themselves have to be completely above arrogance. They cannot be arrogant and saying that, oh, now I have won, I am the leader. No, they have to understand that they are working under the leadership of the leader of the political party that has won. So we have to understand we are not against any party. We do not believe that the parties have done, political parties are all doing wrong and not good and all that. No matter who every political party is striving to do something. It's not easy. It's easy for us to sit back and not participate there and keep criticizing them. But it's not easy to be in those positions. Especially if you understand. Well, you say, oh, when they win, they have huge privileges and all that. But it's no guarantee that they will win. When they don't win, it's really difficult. And even after winning, there is a lot of sacrifice, a lot of hard work that needs to be done. So we have nothing against any political party, and we believe that as a democracy, the political party that will win these elections will or deserves our surrendered service, and hence DPGP will serve. DPGP led by these, DPGP will have no other role after that. After the elections, there is no other role as such. The elected candidates will have a role to actually stand up and prove the fact that they were correctly selected by DPGP, by all of us. And they will do their job righteously with dharma, with expertise. This is what we assume, that they will be an epitome of dharma and expertise in their respective fields. So that is really a strategy that we are talking about, and I am hoping that although this has been kind of long, almost 55 minutes we've been talking, it's going to be almost an hour long, not even a conversation, just one way. I'm just speaking to you, and I don't know how many of you would have had the patience to even listen to this long monologue. But if you think that there is something here, then what I would say is team up, join in, give your comments, give your criticism, let us know where is this thinking going wrong? What can we do? What can we do to make it right? But imagine if we could actually influence 12 seats, 12 constituencies, and have 12 candidates who would be the ideal ministers to sit in that Council of Ministers and give shape to our governmental policies for the next 5 years. And only 5 years. One of the rules or the customs or the culture that we will set in DPGP is that no minister can be in that position for more than one term. That's it. Because no one, if one is craving for power, greed, adharma. So you are not part of DPGP, not Dharma Parayan. So we need to find people who completely agree that they kind of playfully, with all seriousness, just like Virat Kohli goes to bat with all seriousness, but it's a play. In the same way, next time, DPGP will find another set of people. So it doesn't have to be the same person who has to continue 5 years and next 5 years and next 5 years and so on. That craving or greed for power itself is what disqualifies a person from being called Dharma Parayan. So no craving or greed for power, no lust for power, for hanging on to a particular seat or a ministry. So, but what that means is for these 5 years, this person will act with integrity, Dharma Parayan, and with expertise, and give us something that we have all been waiting for all these years: good governance, righteous governance, ethical governance, and expertise through which they navigate our future. What if we could do that? All that is needed is that together in these 100 days, we will learn, we will go through a crash course about these ministries, and that's what is going to happen in the days to follow. We're going to run a crash course about ministries and ministers and what it takes to be a good minister of any particular ministry. Dharma Parayan, obviously we all know what it is. I don't need to say much about it more further, but welcome questions. Any questions, reservations, anything that come to your mind, please feel free to send it across so that we can address it, and let's see where this goes. So Dharma Parayan Ganatantrik Parishad, a birth of a new era. Will it revolutionize the way politics and governance is seen in this country? Well, it's up to you and me. Namaskar.